Hey, family, welcome back to Unpacking Me, where we talk about the parts of trauma no one talks about, especially in spaces that taught us to keep quiet. Today, we're saying something that might sound harsh, but it needs to be said. Family doesn't always mean safe, and that truth is often the starting point for real healing. I kind of feel like I need to even add another one. They always say it takes a village, but all the members of the village aren't safe. Some of them are perverts, some of them are physical abusers,
Yes.
some of them are manipulative. But for today, we're going to focus on the topic at hand, which is family doesn't always mean safe. How does that ring for you, Murnell?
It is one of my favorite topics. I talk about it all the time and I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited.
So, just out of curiosity, what sayings have you or statements have you regularly heard, right? Because sometimes what I find in communities, as a Caribbean native, a fellow Caribbean native from Jamaica, I've heard things like, well, it's Aunt so and so, that's just the way they are. A lot of weaponizing bloodline in order to maintain control.
Oh, yes.
The weaponization of bloodline just to keep people in order, just to keep people controlled. And I'm just curious about things that maybe you've heard or seen in your family. That
Oh, yeah. Uh, yeah. This is a tough topic, right? I'm Haitian
mm-hmm.
by birth and raised. And a lot of it is there's so many. One of the things I've heard often is you're killing your mother.
Ooh, yes.
Yes. You don't want to be the one that killed your
Oh my
mother.
gosh.
Don't want that to be you. Or I've heard you're embarrassing the family. You don't want to be the
Yes.
one that embarrassed the
Yes.
family. And
Yes.
I've seen them go at great length to like what we call Jedi mind tricks, but pretty much it looks
What
like
do you say, Jedi mind
Jedi
trick?
mind trick you.
Oh, Jedi mind trick.
Yeah, when they were like
Okay.
playing your head, there's a
Uh,
lot of emotional manipulation that
yes,
goes on
yes,
where they
yes.
would use anxiety and their cultural or spiritual beliefs to manipulate you into staying in line. I've heard I'm the parent and
Yes, yes,
God says you're supposed to respect me no matter what.
yes.
My mother has once told me, I'm your mother. I could do whatever I want.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about blood is thicker than water?
I haven't heard that one in
You've
my
never heard
culture.
that one.
I've heard that one in America.
Yeah, blood is thicker
I've
than
heard that one in
water.
America.
And then when people say that to me, I say, yeah, but the blood shouldn't be killing me. They go, well, blood is thicker than water. Yeah, but it shouldn't be preventing me from breathing.
Mm. I've heard we're your family. When you hurt, we hurt. So you got to tell us everything.
No one talks about the damage the
Mm.
weaponization of bloodline does to people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important for us to talk about this loyalty that we're trained to have, that, coming into family, our family is the first place where we learn how to socialize. We learn how to set boundaries, even though they're not explicit. Behaviors kind of show us what's acceptable and what's not. And so we're taught through our observation earlier on that certain things are acceptable and some things you'll get punished for. But one thing a lot of times we hear, or in households that are, children are taught, is the fact that you don't air dirty laundry,
Mm.
and that fear, when you call out behaviors, disrespectful behaviors, you're basically deemed as disrespectful
Yes, that's a big
or
one.
ungrateful.
That's a big one.
So when I tell you not to do something, then I'm disrespectful because you're the adult.
Oh, yeah. God forbid you say, I don't like that.
Oh, you're
Wow. You're
disrespectful.
being very disrespectful.
But the thing is, too, even when you're an adult, the older adults in the family, they'll tell you when you tell them not to do something that you're disrespectful.
It's, I don't think you ever, at least from my cultural perspective, in my culture, there is always going to be a hierarchy.
There is a hierarchy.
There's always a hierarchy, even
Yes.
when you've reached a
Yes.
certain age in adulthood, or you're married, or you have your own children.
Yeah.
The hierarchy still stands.
But can I tell you something? So in my family, um, and I'm sure my sister in life, you know, when we were younger, my sister would call out bull crap. She'd call out
Mm-hmm.
the bullshit. She'd call it out. And the rest of us would look at her like, well, what's wrong with her?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because the black sheep always knows.
They always
The
know.
black sheep always knows. And I have a newfound respect for people who are black sheeps, deemed black sheeps of the family, because they sniff out the foolishness and they call it out.
That's why they're the black sheep.
But
Because they see it.
the funny thing though is once the black sheep disappears,
Oh, yes.
that's when you start to see the other things, because normally when you're in a family environment, things get so normalized that you don't even you may not even realize how toxic it is.
Mm-hmm.
So just because something is normalized doesn't mean it's healthy.
Ooh.
Just because a behavior is normalized in your family doesn't make it healthy. So, how do we know if our family is emotionally safe? Like, how do we know? How would we know if a family is unsafe?
Is it unsafe or safe?
Unsafe.
Unsafe.
Let's start with unsafe.
I think number one, when you are about to go to family gatherings, that anxiety show up for you, and you're like, "Oh God." I
Yeah.
think that that says a lot. That speaks volume. That I'm about to enter into my family, a space where my family is,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm anxious,
Mm.
and I'm already trying to figure out my way out. There's a show called Bob's Burger, and
Okay.
it's like a cartoon,
Uh-huh.
very millennial,
Mm-hmm.
and Bob had such a negative relationship with his father.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 15-minute rule to help him with the anxiety.
Mm.
Within 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
he had to go and talk to his father and do whatever he has to do with the family. Only 15 minutes. Because he knew by 15 minutes, it's
Things
just about
pop
to hit
off.
the fan.
Yes.
He gotta go.
Yes.
So like when you feel yourself having to set these type of rules and that anxiety begins to come up, that's not safe.
What about when you're being gaslit?
Ooh.
Or just dismissed when you speak about your feelings? When
Ugh.
you say what you feel, you get ganged upon.
Oh my God.
Or people act like something's wrong with you. What are you saying? It didn't happen. That's not how it happened.
Yeah. I've been told you're doing too much, you're crashing out. It's not okay.
Okay. Or you're being punished for setting boundaries. Like you set boundaries and love is being withheld from you.
Yeah. Or you're being accused of not being loving because of these boundaries that you're setting.
Yes.
And then there is physical abuse or emotional manipulation.
That is
normalized.
Yes, that physical abuse part. Like I'll never forget. In one instance, I was at an event, and I saw a family member. They were there with their daughter, is who was in the 20s, and the daughter did something, and she was trying to whoop that girl's behind.
That girl was how old?
In her 20s, and I'm looking at her like, is this happening right now? This can't be happening right now. And took offense when she was called out for that. How disrespectful that was. You know? So I don't know. I don't know.
Wow.
Just because it's normalized doesn't make it healthy or safe.
Right. Or when your accomplishments are ignored or minimized. And that happens so
Yes.
often.
Yes. Yes.
When we are ignored for the stuff that we've done because we're not doing the stuff that is expected
Yes.
of us.
You're not going along with the crowd.
Yes.
So I think a couple of things are important to highlight. The first is that just because someone raised you doesn't mean that they get to abuse you. Just because someone raised you as an, and I'm speaking to adults or adult listeners now.
Right.
Being raised by your mother, your aunt, your grandmother, your uncle does not give them the right to abuse you or have unlimited access to you. I've seen people get so annoyed. They're like, I have to talk to my mother every day.
Wow.
I have to talk to my uncle every day. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to talk to your family member every day. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is,
you have to.
If it's such a burden to you and it's the conversations are causing you more distress than they are bringing you joy, because sometimes there will be difficult conversations to have, right? So I want to normalize conflict because
Mm,
is nothing wrong with conflict. It's the question is how is it being managed?
mm.
So there are some instances where the interaction will be uncomfortable. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying.
Right.
What I'm saying is when you are an adult and
Mm.
you feel an obligation, a deep obligation that you don't have the right to not answer the phone when a family member calls,
Mm.
that is a problem.
Yes. It's a huge problem.
Because the right to choose is your birthright.
Mm.
The right to choose is your birthright. Your power is in your choices. And if you are stifling your choices because you are fearful of the consequences, then that means you've given your power over to
Mm.
your family.
Mm.
So I just wanted to highlight, I have an example. When I was getting married, so my family is Seventh Day Adventist,
Okay.
and I've always been known as a rebel in my family.
Okay.
I don't know how it happened,
Okay.
but I was always a rebel in my family.
Okay.
And so I would see family members do things to their kids, and my mother and I, we would go at it, man. My family,
You ain't gonna
my family, we would go at it because I was that kid, kind of like my sisters, just that my sister is more bold with it. She was more
Mm.
bold with it because she was way younger, 9 years younger than me.
Oh, okay.
So in my family, I'll never forget when I decided that I was gonna get married, I brought home my boyfriend at the time,
Mm-hmm.
my fiance at the time, and it was to a family event. And when he got there, it was a Saturday after church, and they all decided that were going to do the family interview. And I watched them going at it. And thank God, my husband, now boyfriend at the time, was able to stand up for himself. And I got into it with all of them. And the foolery that I heard. No, it's not a good idea for me to marry him because he's not Seventh Day Adventist and he's gonna cause me to go astray. Maybe I might end up in hell because it's not the right religion. And the foolery went on and on and on and on and on. And I decided to put my foot down. And so, what ended up having my grandmother, whom I love, God bless her resting soul. She was angry with me. She was upset with me. And because I put boundaries in place, I would not have them attack my fiance at the time, my boyfriend. It was not okay with me. I felt like it was very inappropriate, very disrespectful. And although he was very graceful and handled himself like a boss in the conversation, that was not okay.
Mm.
And so I spoke up and set boundaries, and people were pissed with me. And I was okay with them being pissed. And I have to tell you, I felt guilt. I felt like I was doing something wrong because the thing about guilt is like a mediator. Guilt is like, I'm trying to figure out what guilt does. Guilt comes in to hold us accountable for going against morals or values or rules that were previously established.
Yes.
So in my family, you don't necessarily, well, back then, it's not that way anymore. Things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, you did not speak up against the elders in the family. You did not
Mm.
speak up against the grandparents who had concerns. But I didn't give a rat's ass. I challenged them. But when I left there, I felt guilt. And I had to spend a lot of time reassuring myself that it felt new,
Yeah.
it felt different,
Yeah.
it felt scary what I did,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't mean I was wrong. So sometimes we feel guilty for speaking up for ourselves and setting boundaries. And that's why I think it's important. And I had to limit my access to my family for a while. Like, you don't get to do that. And I was a whole adult turning 25.
Mm.
And this is the foolery that I had to experience. So I just wanted to show that, I decided that for me, I needed to be more loyal to myself and this man that I was wanting to marry
Mm-hmm.
than my family. But that thought of blood is thicker than water, I kept hearing it over and over again. But for me, I didn't think that the blood needed to be killing me. It shouldn't be causing me this much distress.
Right.
Because just because the blood's thicker than water, it doesn't mean that it should be leading me to my demise. So I just wanted to highlight that example. And the other piece of it too, just important things for people to know why it hurts so deeply when it's family is because we are wired to seek safety in our caregivers.
Yeah.
We are wired as human beings to look to our family for safety, to our
For our
family
family,
for
yeah.
regulation,
Yeah.
to our family for love, to our family for attachment and connection. And so, one of the worst things that can happen is when the betrayal or the abuse or the hurt comes
From
from
family.
family.
Because it causes attachment wounds. And those are show up in different areas of your life. Those are
Yeah,
some deep wounds.
of course.
And they show up in friendships, romantic relationships, work dynamics. It shows up everywhere because the people who we attach to in the original
Mm-hmm.
are the ones who contributed to the pain. And
Yes.
so now is all relationship unhealthy? Is all relationship safe?
Mm-hmm.
So we begin to generalize
Yes.
relationships
Yes.
because of these wounds.
Yes. Because, like I mentioned earlier on, our family is really that first template
It is.
that we learn to experience
The
socializing,
yeah.
bonding, attaching.
Mm-hmm.
And if the dynamic with your family is one of chaos or control or manipulation or abuse, that is going to spill over in how you move about in relationships. And because of how our brains function, we are doing things unconsciously and not even realize that we may be doing things unconsciously and not even realize that we're doing them. And then in relationships with our new partners, it causes harm. So for instance, in my marriage, when I did get married eventually, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we were able to repair the relationship, my grandmother and I, because her thing was, I love you so much that I'm willing to humble myself, and that was so
That's
impressive to
nice.
me.
That's nice.
And that's what people need to understand. When someone loves you so deeply and value your relationship over their ego,
Yeah.
they will be willing to humble
That's
themselves,
nice.
to own their wrong, which is what she did. And we were both on the phone sobbing together when she apologized to me.
Mm.
She knew she was wrong because she was the main instigator, right? Because my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother also raised me.
Oh, so she was
So
the
that was
mom.
my mom, right?
She was the
So,
mom.
so we were both on the phone and she owned it and she apologized and she told me she was wrong. And because she did that, it was deeply repairing for us.
Mm.
But I think it's important to understand that you don't need anybody's permission
Right. Because sometimes that
to
doesn't
heal
happen.
it.
Yeah.
Yes, and how it was showing up, some of the unhealthy behaviors or unhealthy controlling behaviors of my family, my relationship, is when I did get married, my husband had to point out certain things to me that I didn't even realize I was doing.
Mm.
Imagine how embarrassed I was when he pointed out certain things to me. So in my family, for instance, when we get together, we are loud as hell. We're just loud. We're not yelling. I remember my daughter would say to me, "Why are you guys yelling? Why is everybody mad?"
Mm-hmm.
And I had to tell her we're not yelling. It's just how we are. A group of Jamaicans, we're having fun and we're loud. We're just loud.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to tell me, when you and I have a disagreement, you do not get to yell at me.
Oh, because you're loud.
You do not, but I didn't even realize I was yelling.
Mm.
He said, "You do not get to yell at me
Mm.
or speak down to me.
Mm.
You do not get to do that. You are
Mm.
not my mother, and my mother doesn't even do it to me.
Wow.
And I will not allow you to do it." And at first, I didn't understand what he was saying. And he said to me, "The next time we're around your family, look at how the women tend to try to talk to the men." And I was like, "What?" I took offense.
Right.
But then I started paying attention. I was like, "Oh, shoot. Ouch. Ouch." So that was so normalized because we know sometimes in relationships, it can be very frustrating for women.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that was communicating was through yelling.
Yelling and
And
talking
so it
down.
wasn't until he pointed that out to me that I made a commitment to our relationship and to him that I would do better. I wasn't even a therapist back then, but I was like, I will do better because I loved our relationship, and I love him enough to make a commitment to try, you know.
Mm,
But for me, the big lesson from that was knowing that I didn't need anybody's permission in order for me to do things differently.
I love this.
Yeah. I didn't need my mother's permission or my grandmother's permission to decide that I was going to do my family differently,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, just out of curiosity, what about on your side, Murnell?
Uh, my side, what my family tends to have, we don't talk about issues.
What?
We don't talk about issues.
Oh.
My family is more of a, if we do talk about it, if we have certain circumstances that we need to talk about, it's usually from a place of manipulation, anxiety, and
Mm.
control. So there's
Okay.
a lot of shutting down. There's a lot of I need to be in your space type of situation. So what I started to realize is because of that, we had way too much access to each other.
That's what we call
There
enmeshment.
was a lot of enmeshment. My mother is the enmeshment queen.
uh,
And so think about it, growing up, there was three daughters, my mom and my dad. So she was the queen of the castle.
mm,
And as the queen of the castle, she got to do what she want when she wanted to do it, how she wanted to do it.
wow.
So there was a lot of enmeshment, there was a lot of control, there was a lot of manipulation and emotional abuse. So when I decided to take control of my healing, the first thing I did was I set up boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And oh boy,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a curse word in my house, in
Yep.
my family.
Yep.
And part of the boundary that I set was limiting access to
Mm-hmm.
myself and learning to be an individual
Mm-hmm.
outside of the group.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is where
Yes.
I still am working on healing that aspect of I'm an individual. I don't
Mm-hmm.
always have to be part of the group.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always have to be in the group.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's still that experience of if you're not part of the group, then you're just hating everyone.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm like, I don't hate everyone.
Yeah.
I love you all. I
Mm-hmm.
just need that experience to experience life and then come back in. And
Yeah.
at my time,
Mm-hmm.
when I need to be, when I deem it necessary, because I need to protect my peace.
Mm-hmm.
And so that aspect of protecting your peace, or that they don't get access to my peace,
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard concept for my family to now grasp. And I'm still working on fixing
Yeah, that is, you said something that's so important. I think oftentimes as adults,
that. Mm-hmm.
we've been trained to believe that our family owns the right to our peace.
Yes.
We've been trained to believe that our peace is dependent on our family.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so far from the truth.
So far.
You know, because that is, again, giving your right, your birthright to be an individual over to someone else. Um, and so when we talk about enmeshment, just for the benefit of some of our listeners who may not be familiar with that term, it's kind of like having um, many individuals and they all share one identity.
Mm.
Many individuals in a space or community in a household, and they're all functioning under one
One
identity.
identity.
So I'll give an example. When you leave the house and you put on something and your mom goes, when you leave out there, you represent me. When you behave that way, I get judged. Me. I've even had, you know, it's you're chuckling, but I've even had situations here where I'm working with Jamaican mothers or Caribbean mothers, and they'll say to me, well, when they decided to come out as being gay, they made everybody judge me. And
Oh, okay.
or you know, she went and pierced her ears and did all these things, and she doesn't realize that it is bringing shame to the whole family. They're representing me, so there's not any space being made for members of that
Individuality.
family to function as an individual with their own unique being, their own unique way of functioning and being as an individual. There's not space being made for that. And when the when someone tries to assume their identity as they should, things like love is being withheld, or you're being called the problem, always trying to start a problem, or what we call triangulation start to happen. So
Huge.
mom's pissed that now
Huge.
you've decided to go do something differently. And so mom goes to your siblings and
Yeah.
try to turn them against you. Or, it can be dad or a sister. So this one's pissed with you. And what they do, they go around to each family member trying to kind of get the troops together to
To
attack,
gang up on that
gang
one
upon that one
person.
person.
That's huge in my family.
Yeah. And
Triangulation's
so
huge.
yeah, and so that causes and perpetuates a lot of harm.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of harm. I've even seen things like sexual abuse happen, and the victim speaks up. And because the family member who did the abuse is the family favorite, family members will do things like say, "No, that can't be what happened. Maybe you're misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they just brushed up against you. Maybe that's not what happened." And will even go to great lengths, which is another episode for another time, by the
Yes.
way,
Big.
to gaslight the victim.
Oh yes.
And when family events happen, demand that the victim be present while the perpetrator, the offender, is also there. And I've had to say to people, just because Auntie so and so loves you, or your mother loves you, doesn't make being at family events safe for you, because they'll say, but they're going to be there, and the offender is going to be there, and I don't feel safe being there. And I keep telling them, when they have events, if they're going to be there, I don't feel safe. And family members will
We'll get
gaslight
upset.
again and be pissed. And I've had to say to individuals, just because those people love you and care about you doesn't make it safe to be around the others who've caused you harm. And I think it's important for us to realize that you get to choose to protect your peace, your safety. It is your responsibility as
Yes.
an adult. When you're children, I mean, that one situation is so complex, but as an adult, but what I tend to see is so many of us get so guilty. We feel so guilty and afraid that we're going to be abandoned and alone,
Mm-hmm.
that we resort to allowing ourselves to be exposed to the continued abuse.
Yes. And I think a lot of it is, at least for my case, is recognizing that sometimes it's okay to welcome the loneliness if it provides you a safe space.
That sounds like a cuss word you just said for
I
people,
know.
right?
I know. I
You
know.
know that, right?
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, though, when healing is happening, it requires that you work from the inside out.
And that, yeah.
When you decide to take responsibility for your own peace, your own identity, and your own healing, it is important to understand that healing begins from the inside out,
Mm-hmm.
not the outside in.
Yes.
Not you looking to people, the same people that harmed you, to heal you. That becomes your responsibility, and having the support. And sometimes it has to be a therapist. Therapy isn't the only way to heal. However, it is one of the healthiest ways to heal. But there are other ways people can heal. However, the healing is important to understand that it needs to start from the inside out. You need to learn to show up for yourself. You need to become comfortable with feeling lonely.
Lonely. Mm-hmm.
You need to be comfortable with facing the parts of you that were wounded, or that family or bloodline was used to weaponize against you. You need to show up for you, because while blood is thicker than water, sometimes water is safer than being around contaminated blood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
you know? So, what tools might you suggest? Well, what we didn't talk about is what a safe family unit might look like. And I think the first thing is a space where there's space made for each member to be an individual.
Individual. Yeah.
I think that's crucial. There's space being made so that each member can be the individual being that they are.
Right. Being able to disconnect in a healthy way and then reconnect in a
Yes.
healthy way. Let me live and share. Live and
Yes.
share.
Yes.
And a place where you have that voice, and
Hmm.
conflict doesn't mean love is going to be removed from you.
Yes, that's another one. So just because we have a conflict, it doesn't mean that you're withholding
That you
love
withhold
from me.
love from me.
Yes. What about not being judged?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We're humans and we judge from time to time, right?
I think there's a way to do it in a healthy way.
Yes. Yes.
There's a healthy way to judge. I have to judge whether or not to brush my teeth and stuff like that.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily refer to that as right. You're using discernment then, right,
Right.
in how you communicate things. But if family members are not able to communicate their needs or offenses to you without or vulnerability without being judged, then that's not safe.
Right.
So there has to be a space where there's listening with openness
Mm-hmm.
and curiosity and kindness and mercy, not to judge the person, but to be curious so you can understand where they're coming from. Anything
Right.
else comes up for you?
A place where your boundaries are respected, where there is
That part.
respect.
That part.
Respect for my boundaries. If I say no, it's not to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just my no, and saying, "Oh, okay."
So respecting people's
Respecting
no.
people's no, respecting people's yes, respecting people's boundaries.
As you're sharing that, I have some of my clients because I see a lot of Caribbean clients and many of them are Haitians. And one thing we regularly laugh about my Haitian clients will say, do you not know a Haitian mama will show up at your house
Yes.
and at your job?
Yes. Yes.
And just act like, well, what's the problem? Why are you surprised that I'm here?
If they don't like the way your household is being run, they will show up and confront you.
No warning, just showing up. And
knock on your door.
listen, there are times where that might be appropriate when your child is suffering and you might need to make sure they're safe. That's not what we're talking
No,
about.
definitely not. Definitely not.
We're talking about total disregard for people's privacy and just thinking you have complete access to them all the time. So that came to mind for me when you show it. I think another thing that makes a family unit safe is the willingness to own that you are wrong.
Yes. Accountability.
Crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Own you're wrong.
Yeah.
Own you're wrong without trying to blame or avoid or deny.
Yes.
It is uncomfortable. But what an honor to your loved one to own you're wrong.
Yeah.
If you're wrong, you're wrong. And say it makes you feel uncomfortable and embarrassed, but own it because not owning it causes so much harm. And lastly, normalizing conflict.
Yeah.
There's
I think that's
nothing wrong.
huge.
Yeah, there's
That's
nothing
huge.
wrong with having conflict. It's how it's being managed.
Yes.
And so many, especially Caribbean or marginalized communities, especially Black community, African American community, other communities too, but we're just being specific to our communities, right? Marginalized communities, especially. Um, People are afraid of conflict.
Big.
Conflict averse. They are go through great lengths to avoid conflict because the first time they experienced it might have been dad punching mom in the face or this person being beaten to a pulp, and so now they've classed abuse as overall conflict.
Yeah.
So it's important to note that healthy ways of managing conflict is normal. It's how it's being managed.
Mm-hmm.
And if conflict arises and it's being managed with violence, that's when we have a problem. Or being managed with judgment or dismissing or demeaning the person or shutting them down or isolating them. That is a toxic way to manage conflict.
Yes.
So, with that said, what tools can we recommend for our listeners in terms of healing? Well, the first one is to understand that boundaries are not betrayal. They're necessary for your survival. It is your birthright to have your identity and set up boundaries for your family. And I think it's also important to remember again that you do not need permission to have your emotions. It is human to have your emotions. Allow yourself to name your pain. Name your pain, even if it came from your mother or your father. Did you realize, Myrna, that a lot of people don't realize that when it comes on to two things can be true or a multiplicity of things, that I can be angry about my mother or father's behaviors and still deeply love them.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. I think one of the biggest thing that when I, especially for myself and when I'm working with my clients, I help them understand that just because you name the pain doesn't mean it's going to hurt anything.
Right.
And that healing starts from truth.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, my mama did hurt my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience did cause me pain. And you could still love the person and still be a part of that person's life and still understand the truth and how it hurt and
Yes.
how it contributed to the relationship
Yeah.
breakdown.
I mean, I get it though, because when you grow up in an environment where speaking your truth meant you were made to feel like it was betrayal of the
Mm,
family, like you were being disloyal, I can understand why someone would be fearful of allowing themselves to have their anger about
exactly.
what family has done. And oftentimes in therapy sessions, when people come in, we have to spend so much time with them, helping them to understand that you get to have your anger or your frustration against family members, and it doesn't take away from
From
your love for them,
no.
because they literally feel like they are dishonoring their families, not realize that your family did a lot of things to dishonor you,
Yeah.
all in the name of love.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
not
not
love.
okay.
That's not okay.
That's not
You
okay.
know, so we sometimes have to redefine that. um Journaling, I think one question to ask yourself, a prompt you can use, is what parts of you have been disappearing or tend to disappear when you're with your family?
Mm,
What parts of you tend to disappear when you are around your family? And how old do you
feel.
feel in the presence of your parents or family?
That's a big
Maybe
one.
start doing that. When you go around them and you notice an energetic shift, ask yourself, how
How
old
old
do
am
I
I?
feel?
Yeah.
Right? Anything else come to mind for you, Murnell?
In learning grounding tools and ways to navigate being around your family,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I teach my client often is
Mm-hmm.
the power of the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you walk into the family, before you walk into the family experience, you take a couple of breaths and you imagine yourself surrounded by a bubble. And that bubble is your energy bubble that you yourself control. And nothing can penetrate it, and you're in control of the energy that you allow to come into that bubble
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't, what oftentimes I hear, oh, I'll match energies. Well, you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Mm-hmm.
protect yourself in the bubble. When you walk in, you're the one in control, not the surrounding
Yeah,
around you.
yeah. And sometimes it's as simple as you get to leave.
Yeah.
You get to leave, to walk out, to leave. Sometimes you're living with those same family members who are tormenting and abusing you, and I know it's difficult. And this is why support is needed. And I encourage people, get the support of a therapist or support groups out there. So support groups like Adult Children of Dysfunctional Families. And a great book just came to mind for me. It's called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents.
Oh, yeah.
Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. That's also a great read. So I recommend people to check that book out. Sometimes it's just a breath, and saying to yourself, I am allowed to protect myself.
Mm,
I am allowed to redefine family.
that's powerful.
I am allowed to protect myself, and I am allowed to redefine family.
I love it.
Any closing thoughts?
I think
Renee?
my favorite part is I am allowed to redefine family.
Yes.
I think a lot of us don't have that permission. So
Mm-hmm.
giving ourselves permission to redefine family,
Mm-hmm.
that's huge.
Yes. You are not a bad daughter. You are not an ungrateful son. You're someone trying to heal in a system that was never taught how to heal in a healthy way.
Mm,
You are not a bad daughter. You are not an ungrateful son. You are not an ungrateful or disrespectful daughter, niece, or son. You are just trying to heal in a system that was never taught how to do it in a healthy way. But you get to change it. You get to honor your birthright, to choose you, and to make choices that honor your peace. So, just a reminder to follow us on Instagram.
subscribe.
Yes, subscribe and share with others who you think could benefit from this. And next week, we are digging into our topic.
Big people don't cry. The shame around showing emotion.
Yes, big people don't cry. That is so, in other words, grown-ups don't cry. The shame around showing emotion, right? So we'll be talking about the strength is equal to numbing.
Yeah,
right?
emotional numbness get confused for strength.
Yes. So hopefully you will all tune in. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening. And as always, be kind to yourself because you deserve it. Bye for now.
Yeah. Bye, guys.